Hell yeah, dude. Alright, I'm gonna just commentate over this real quick. Alright, this is gonna be a commentary for AGDQ submission over top of my current PB. Was from a little while ago, but it's really. Yeah, this is Maskless and Maskless Hotline, and we're just gonna start the video, I guess. Where does it actually start? Around here, okay. Yeah, so Maskless Hotline Miami is an interesting category. It is basically just Hotline Miami, but instead of having access to any anything you want to play, like any mask you have, like in like New Game Plus all levels, you can only use the Richard mask, which Richard mask doesn't give us any abilities. So you're not moving any faster than anyone else. You don't have lethal throws, no lethal fists, nothing like that. So you just have to play through the game, just punching people and then picking up weapons. So normally, in most categories, like in New Game 90%, which is the second most popular category, where we mainly play through with like a mask such as like Tony with lethal fist and Graham, which makes us move at 116% speed, or like in New Game Plus all levels, where you use either Tony, which is again lethal fist, or Brandon, makes you move at 133% speed. You don't have either of those. So like, if you're coming from the normal categories, like the big categories that people actually run, you'll be kind of off put because like this, you have to play through the game quite a bit differently when you play as Richard. Because when you're playing as Richard, see, you don't have like any of these like things to help you out. You have to play through the game without any of these things that generally you use, and just like end up like using as a crutch. Not really a crutch, but just like, I mean, because this is not like a multiplayer game where people are like whatever. But you just tend to like get used to having set ability, so then being able to switch to a different ability is hard for some people to do. So like, when you're playing through as Richard, you have to go through levels. They're usually kind of similar, but like you have to focus on kind of like in like how in Brandon you have to focus on keeping on a melee weapon, but often with Brandon you go through the entire level using a melee weapon. But when you're playing through as Richard, since you're moving so slow, you have to use guns more, so you have to balance having guns at your disposal and also having melee weapons at your disposal at all times, basically, because otherwise you'll just die. Now, so, like, as we see, when we're going through the levels, we're trying to minimize the amount of time we're walking, just because, of course, you want to move as little as possible and kill. So basically, the way to go through a level in Hotline Miami fastest, in general, is to walk through the level, is to walk as little while killing as many people as possible. So generally that, like, so here also, we're going to do this glitch called, just called Decadent Skip, where we just punch a guy. We can angle a guy to be under the car, so that we can, once we execute him, our hitbox is underneath of where the car trigger is to go on to the next level, and it'll bring us to the next level. That only works if the car is vertical, though, and also if the level itself is one of the bonus levels. So it only works on the 2 bonus levels, and Decadence, which we just went through, and a later level called Neighbors. Other than that, there's no major level skips. So, and this level right here, which we just beat, this level is called Tension, and it's very RNG based, the first screen, but yeah. So yeah, it's a pretty simple level. Tension is. It's just the first screen is very RNG based, and usually it's very, very common to have a lot of time lost on that. But yeah, and also as you notice, you can see because in this stream I had no board, which shows the keyboard inputs. You'll see there's a lot of spamming of the left mouse button just to instantly pick things. But this game has you don't have many inputs. You just have movement, and like shooting, and like a couple other buttons. But like it's all about the way you move. It's not like that there's a lot of inputs to move around per se. It's more the fact that knowing where you are in relation to the AI changes the way that they react to you and how you can react to them. So So in a lot of places, I'm going to be moving in slightly weird spots, or like moving around, or getting out of the way in specific ways, such that I'm out of their like vision for longer, or so that like I aggro them faster. Or like here, I'm trying to go into the door very fast and pop right out because the guy on that right side has a very, very fast reaction time almost all the time. So you got to be really careful there. So like with the AI, there's a lot of randomness in this game, in terms of like the way that the enemies, certain enemies, will be in different places randomly. Like their spawn is set, but they'll move around randomly. There's other AI though that are completely predictable, but a lot of them will move around randomly. The second you aggro any AI though, then they just go into the random movement phase. And also the bullet rate is random. Enemy reaction times can be random. They can range from anywhere from 1 frame reaction time to never reacting. Yeah, and that's what we just did, was called this hostage strat. It's this method in Hotline where if you have a double barrel, an Uzi, a silenced pistol, and I think one other gun or so, if you're over top of a guy who was knocked down and are holding one of those weapons and press space, you can hold him as your hostage and he'll take a bullet for you, as well as you'll move at the fastest possible speed in Hotline Miami, which even a little bit faster than Brandon actually. And right here we're doing this is the second skip. This is a lot more complex than the decadent skip, as you can tell. We have to manipulate 2 AI, one to clip out of the level itself, and then one to clip into the door. So that's really, really difficult strat to do. But after you do it like for 20 plus hours, it gets a lot easier, which should be expected. Now this right here is the biker fight. So right here we have to move around in kind of weird ways so that we can have him react in specific ways. So we want to keep him close to the door so that once he's done and we kill him, we can just have the least amount of movement time to get into the elevator. And also we're just trying to bait the way that he throws the knife in that way. And also I also try to make sure that he doesn't throw the knife at a very like straight on angle. Like if he throws the knife directly straight at a wall, it's a very good chance that a thing called a clank could happen. And a clank is basically the game, once the knife goes too far into something, or like where he wouldn't be able to get it, it makes a clank sound. Then he goes to go pick it up, and then he will just sprint right at you at a way too fast, like an infinite speed, and you cannot avoid him. He will kill you. There's no way to avoid it. It's really annoying. But you can reduce that by not having him throw it anywhere near the table, like in the back and like the end of the level, like the very bottom of it, and also not by having him throw it at a straight angle where like the collision detection doesn't happen fast enough for the game to like stop it. So, but that happens every now and then. Usually only happens once though, so it's not that big a deal. And also, this is like another example of like where we're just playing through the level, and it's pretty much the same strategy as like, let's say Tony or whatever, but we just have to, it just takes us a bit longer because we don't have all the abilities. So like, it's generally the same strategy, it's just that it's a more difficult way of playing through it. No, this screen is pretty simple. I mean, we just go through and then, this is just guns. We just have to try and kill these guys in the best way possible. And then, yeah, nothing really special here. This is a really interesting screen if you're playing as Brandon, though, because there's a really hard strat you can do just to save some time. But, yeah. Also, if you've noticed, after every level we can quit and go. So if you press escape at that, like right after, like we're right next to the car, we press escape, press up once, and press left mouse button. That brings us to the main menu. And then if you press down once and then press enter twice, then that will bring us instantly to the next level if you're on a new game file. So it's a total of like 7 inputs total, and and you can do them. Hotline Miami is a 60 FPS game, so you can do one input per 60 FPS. So it's only like 7 frames, and then of time besides like the transition times, and then we're right into the next level. It's pretty interesting, and it saves a really good amount of time. That's where the majority of the time save is between like comparing new game plus all levels to like new game 80%. It's really just that part. So I mean, there were the 2 skates we saw, which the first one saves about like, I don't know, 15-20 seconds, and then the second one saves at roughly 10 seconds. But both of those together are only like 30 seconds total. And then there's also a strategy where we Alt F4 the game during a cutscene, so that we can save a few seconds. But all that together is under like 45 seconds. But the difference between the categories is about like 4 minutes plus. So it's really just the time that we save from being able to just go right to the next level. In certain places it saves a lot more time. Like before the level called Trauma, there's like this really long sequence, so if you play through like a new game plus all levels, then you would have to go through it. But in this case, we don't have to. So, yeah. Now this level is hot and heavy. It's generally considered one of the hardest levels in the game. It's really not even that bad, even with Richard, because after with a lot of time of playing this level, you realize it's actually really well designed. I mean, I guess it's not well designed for a new player, but like once you play it a lot, it's pretty good. It's a really difficult level, but once you get really good at it, it's really set up to be done in like a really smooth and fun way. And this is the one, I think, the only level where you can pick which room you go to next. Like there's 3 rooms after you kill all the guys in the first war. Of course, it's fastest to go a specific way, but it's actually kind of cool that you're able to do it like this. Not because everywhere else in the game you're forced to go to a next level. And here we just picked up the golf club for the next level, next screen. I mean. Also, interesting thing with melee weapons, there's 4 actually like even well, there's 3 main melee weapons that will spawn like normally, like for any enemy and around the place. That is the baseball bat, the golf club, and then also the pipe. The golf club is by far the best. It has the longest like range and has the best like swing speed. Then there's the baseball bat, which really slow, bad swing speed, and not that far of a range. And then there's also the pipe, which is again just like really bad. So generally, you never want to have a baseball bat or the pipe if you can. You always want to be going for the golf club if you can. And then there's also the knife, but yeah, I forgot about the knife. But yeah, the knife is very fast swing speed. But the distance, how close you have to be to them is very close. So in general, if you get better at the game, it's just better to have a golf club. There are some other melee weapons, but in terms of NG and %, you'll only see those 4 generally. And then also there was one level where there's a crowbar, which is by far the best melee weapon that exists in the game. But it's only in 1 level, which was Full House, which we saw a bit earlier. The one thing that's annoying about the knife is the very long like execution time, as we just saw. This screen right here is by far the most difficult in the entire game. It's just because like because you have to keep track of so many guys, because as you start shooting, certain guys will come from either the top left, the bottom left, or the top right. So you gotta be really careful. And there's also 2 guys behind the glass that you have to take care of. And when you start killing those guys can start coming out to kill you, so it's really interesting. Overall, this is my favorite level in the game, actually, but yeah, and then also there's it's a pretty satisfying fight. It's really simple, but oh, I forgot. Apparently, in my PP, I just did that wrong, but whatever. Yeah, so it's pretty simple, as you see. We know how they come in. There's 2 fat guys, 1 fat guy. Then we yeah, whatever. As you can see, it's pretty simple. It's really satisfying to do, even though it's really easy, just because it's very consistent. And now this right here, this quit to the menu and go and skip to the next thing right here saves which is what I was referencing earlier, saves a really good amount of time. Because we go right to this trauma screen, because there's like this whole like cutscene and like transition between these two levels that takes a good bit of time. And here we have to spam the left click. As you see in the inputs, whenever I'm trying to go through text, I'm always holding right click and spamming left click. Just because in Hotline, and everywhere except for this screen, holding right click will skip through the text. But not every text like in the game is long enough where that right click will come up. I think it's about like 2 seconds in. So if you just start spamming left click, and so if you hold down right click and spam left click, you can take care of any scenario of the text that will appear in the game. So you'll know you're going through it fastest. But in this case, for some reason, you can't hold right click to skip all that text, and it takes a long time. So you just have to spam so much out of the left click. So right here, we just alt F4 right after that cutscene started, and that lets us save, I think, like 6 seconds off of like a transition, and then we go right into Assault. Now, Assault is one of the most difficult levels in the game because it's very RNG based. Even for casuals, like, which don't even really care about RNG, it's a really hard level, but it's not the best because it's really RNG heavy, especially on this first screen and the third screen. Second screen's not that bad. It's really execution heavy, but there's not that much RNG, which is really nice. And again, since we're Richard, I mean, it does make it harder, but it's not that hard. Which I might be disproving because I haven't watched my PB in quite a bit. I've on and off ran this category, like, a little bit just for practice or for fun. I haven't really taken it seriously in a while, but I have at least, as you can see, the sum of best, just even in this run, apparently I took down my sum of best like 20 seconds. My sum of best is like sub 21, but my PB is 23:45, so I have a lot of time to take off actually. And also the category estimate of 27 minutes is pretty good because the category estimate that we have, that like everyone is in the Hotline community uses for like New Game Plus all levels, which is the category most online marathons, and also the 3 GDQs that Hotline's been seen at have used. Yeah, so like 30 minutes has been proven to be like a really good time because it's really it's pretty much impossible to get, like, once you get like a time like that's like around like a sub 20 like 7 in Hotline Miami, like New Game Plus levels, you pretty much can always get a sub 30. So, and that's been tested at like 3 GDQs as well as multiple online marathons. And since the 90% categories are generally about 4 minutes slower, 3 minutes off of 30 is a pretty good estimate, especially because there is some extra stuff that can go wrong because of like the neighbor skip and also decadent skip. So it's a pretty decent overall estimate, I'd say. Oops, sorry for hovering over that. Now this is Vengeance. Vengeance is it's the most execution heavy total level in the entire time, in like the entire game, but it's not very. So like this is like some like interesting like movement we do to like aggro guys in specific ways, so that we can kill all these guys just with a melee weapon. And this is actually used in every mask. Every mask gets fastest to go through this. Well, it's not the fastest, but it's by far the most consistent. You could go through this faster if you have a gun and you're just really good at it, but that's like really inconsistent. It's not even that much faster. But this level, as you can see, is like really like interesting. Like we do all these things, like throwing a weapon, let going of it, like throwing a gun, killing a guy, using his melee weapon, dropping that melee weapon, picking up the gun, killing a bunch of guys, etc. It's a really interesting level. It's really fun to play once you get better at the game. It's one of the hardest levels in the game, of course. I mean, it's right after Assault. So I mean, like this entire like part 4 is just like hard level after hard level. Assault, Vengeance, and then Showdown. The boss is hard on the first playthrough. I mean, this game is generally considered to be a very hard game, and also that's like the really interesting about watching this game is generally you just see that people play it differently. Like everyone you see play this game will generally go through it about it in a different way. So like you'll see like my gameplay versus like Snowvats or Jackintosh or whoever runs this game, like Dr. Ernstein, whatever, like whoever's like playing the category. You just like compare all the videos that people who play the game, like CFB, whatever, and then you can see that everyone just plays through the game pretty differently, and also like we'll use different strats. But in general, most of us know the same strats. So just whatever you're best at, because like a lot of these strats are not too much lower than other strats are. It's just more about like knowing what you're best at with the strategies and like how you play through the game. So like when you're watching the game, especially because there's all this RNG, like you have to be able to use backup strats all the time, and also you'll notice that like between runs a lot of different things can happen. Like you can go about the same level in a completely different way just because of the way that the RNG throws at you. Like there's a good bit of RNG, but like at the same time, like you generally finish in the same amount of time. It's just the way that the level plays out is different. It's a really interesting game for like races, especially just because of that. The one thing that's hard about running Hotline, I'd say, would just be because if you switch between categories, it can become a pain because different categories have different strategies. So, like playing as Maskless, like if I'm only playing Maskless, it's fine. But like if I'm playing like New Game Plus all levels and I switch to Maskless, it's more difficult because I'm going from being able to play as like Brandon or Tony, but then now I have to play without any abilities at all. So it's just the thing, like if you play a bunch of categories at once, you're just gonna mess up your ability in like all of them. But if you just play one, you'll be fine. So like if I were to play like all the categories back to back, like, it wouldn't be too hard. It's just that like every now and then you would just do something and then be like, oh crap, that's not for this category. But really not that big deal. So yeah, so now here we're playing as Biker. Now Biker has, as you see, the meat cleaver, and he also has throwing knives. So we use that to our advantage. We want to keep the throwing knives until we get past this 2 sets of guys right here, and then we throw the knives at 3 specific enemy AI, because if we kill them like that, it's a bit faster. But yeah, so we have the meat cleaver and we can't pick up any other weapons. So we just try to. So the point of like routing like these levels is just knowing when to use the throwing knives most effectively. So on fun and games, we use one right here to kill that guy, and then we save the other 2 for the last 2 guys in the top right corner that we're not going to kill until the end. This second screen is not that RNG based. The first screen can be, but generally it's not that bad. But yeah, so and then we just use. Oh, I guess I don't know why I didn't throw it there. Apparently my PB, but whatever. But yeah, and yeah, there's really only 2 like actually action-based levels for Biker. Now it's just prank call. It's just it's more for story, and it's technically a boss fight, but it's not even close to difficult. Like even for a casual player, it's just more for the story aspect because like this is like a time paradox type thing. This game is really trippy if you haven't noticed. But yeah, so we just have to do a single like little like glitch where we can execute. So when we execute the guy, like because we're gonna kill Jacket, which was the guy we were just playing as. When we kill him, you like kick him forward, and then you walk forward, and we can trigger this like at the wall. So like right here, we kick him forward, and then we walk forward, and now we're just right through the wall. And that saves about 8 to 10 seconds, depending on where you do it. And yeah, that's the end of the prank call. And now we're just going on to the last level, which is just text screens, it's just story. Yeah, the last two levels are a story for the game, really, but yeah. And as you noticed, Hotline's a really interesting top-down game. I guess that's why I was accepted 3 different times to GDQ. But yeah, and we just do a little bit of text selection, select the top 3 questions, and then select the bottom 2 questions, and that's the fastest way to beat through. And yep, that's the end of that run. So yeah, Maskless is really interesting just because you don't have any of the like abilities, so you have to play through the game a bit more cautiously, and also just do different strategies than you normally would. And yeah, that's about it. That's my submission for Maskless, the Hotline Randy for AGDQ. Thank you. Hey, that was pretty gay.